Hey friends, I'm Miss Delaney. I'm a pre-service teacher at Tarleton State University and I attend at the Waco campus. So today I will be going over with y'all about Lewis and Clark and their expedition that they went on, how they came to America. But before that, I want to show you a map. This map shows the route that Lewis and Clark took for their expedition. So we could just look at it and see where they had to go to get here. Next, I'm going to show a picture of Lewis. So this is Lewis. And now I'm going to show a picture of Clark. And then next, I'm going to show a picture of what a prairie is. And then a prairie dog. So some of y'all might be, a prairie? What is a prairie? Stop. I'm about to go over that for y'all. So before you dive into the book, I just want to teach y'all a few words. Some of y'all may or may not know them. But to be on the safe side, I'm going to teach them, maybe reteach them if y'all already know them. That way you're not confused while we're reading the book and you just know what's going on at all times. So the first one is expedition. An expedition is a big trip or journey to explore or discover new things. A prairie is a wide open area of land with lots of grass but few trees. Species is a group of animals or plants that are all the same kind. And the last one, territory, is an area of land that belongs to someone or something, like an animal's home. So we went over those. So now we're going to start with our book. This is Lewis and Clark, A Prairie Dog for the President by Shirley Ray Redmond. In 1803, Thomas Jefferson was the President of the United States. The country was still new. It was also very big. It was so big, no one had ever explored it all. President Jefferson wondered how long it would take to reach the Pacific Ocean. He wondered what the land was like along the way. The president wrote to his friend, Meriwether Lewis. And then we have Clark. Lewis was a soldier. He wanted to be an explorer. Lewis's buddy William Clark wanted to be an explorer too. So an explorer is a person who travels to a new place. And that's what Lewis and Clark are. So like if I were to go travel to Europe, I'd be an explorer. Or if I were to travel for a living, I would be known as an explorer. Lewis and Clark went to see the president. I need someone to explore the West, said the president. We'll do it, said Lewis and Clark. The president told Lewis and Clark to make maps and explore rivers. He told them to collect plants and draw wild animals. Most important, he told them to send presents. Wow, Lewis and Clark are getting ready for their big trip. They look excited, but I bet they were also nervous because they did not know what they would find. All I can think about is how they had to plan everything carefully. What to pack, how to travel, and who would go with them. When we go on trips, we have to pack things we need too. What do you think Lewis and Clark may have packed for their long journey? What would you pack if you were going on an adventure? Lewis and Clark needed helpers for their journey. They took soldiers, scouts, and boatmen. Lewis even took his dog. It was a long trip. One of the scouts brought his wife, Sacagawea. Sacagawea was a big help. She picked nuts and berries. She cooked meat and stew. She talked and traded with the Indians they met on the way. Out west, Lewis and Clark made maps. They explored rivers. They collected plants. They saw animals they had never seen before. They saw buffalo. They saw grizzly bears. They saw jackrabbits with long ears. They drew pictures of the animals. So it shows you this is a buffalo. This is a grizzly bear. And that is a jackrabbit with long ears. They tried to catch some of the animals to send to the president, but the buffalo were too big. The grizzly bears were too dangerous. The jackrabbits were too fast. The president will think we've forgotten him, they worried. One day, Lewis and Clark came to a prairie. The ground was filled with holes. A little animal sat by each hole. "What are those?" asked Lewis. Just then, a hawk flew overhead. The little animals barked. Then they dived into their holes. "Let's catch one of those rascals," Clark said. "They are small enough to send to the president." The soldiers took shovels and picks. They dug and dug, but the little animals were too fast. "Let's flood them out," Lewis said. The men carried water from the river. Lewis poured the water into a hole. Clark and the soldiers waited beside the other holes. They waited and waited and waited. Then one of the animals popped up. "I've got it," said Clark. Clark put the animal in a cage. "I wonder what it is," he said. Lewis laughed. "It's a wet rodent. You can call it a ground rat." "No," said Clark. "It looks like a squirrel. I'll call it a barking squirrel." "Squirrels don't bark," said a soldier. "Dogs bark. We should call it a prairie dog." "That's it," Lewis and Clark agreed. Lewis and Clark picked a scout to take the prairie dog to the president. Clark also gave the scout some birds to take. They were called magpies. Lewis gave the scout a letter for the president. He gave him plants that he had collected. The soldiers gave him buffalo skins and deer horns. "Have a nice trip," said Lewis and Clark. Now that we see that the prairie dog is being sent to President Jefferson, this makes me think about how important it was to share new discoveries back then. They didn't have phones or cameras to send pictures, so they had to find other ways to show what they discovered. I'm wondering what President Jefferson will think when he gets the prairie dog. How do you think he will feel? If you were President Jefferson, what would you want to know about this animal and where it came from? The scout and the animals rowed a barge down the river. They boarded a big ship in New Orleans. The ship sailed around Florida, then it sailed north to Baltimore, Maryland. Finally, the ship landed in Baltimore. The scout put the animals and the other presents into the back of a wagon. He paid the driver to take everything to President Jefferson in Washington, D.C. The president met the wagon at the White House. He picked up the prairie dog's cage. "Is this a gopher?" he asked. "No," said the driver. "I think it is a woodchuck." President Jefferson read the letter from Lewis. A soldier named this creature a prairie dog. It lives on the western prairie and barks like a dog. The president gave the prairie dog a piece of an apple. Chomp! The prairie dog gobbled it right up. The president laughed. "Americans will want to see this little fellow," he said. "I will send these fine presents to Mr. Peely's museum." Mr. Peely's museum was in Philadelphia. The prairie dog and the other gifts rode in a stagecoach to the museum. It was a very bumpy ride. Mr. Peely loved the presents. He sent President Jefferson a thank you note. "The prairie dog is a pleasing little animal. He is not at all dangerous like a groundhog," he wrote. Mr. Peely put the cage in a sunny room. Children came to see the prairie dog. Artists came to draw its picture. The visitors touched the buffalo skins and the deer horns. They stared at the magpies. "The American West must be a wonderful place," they said. The West was wonderful. Lewis and Clark were gone for 2 years exploring it. In November of 1805, they finally reached the Pacific Ocean. They were heroes. If you travel west today, you can still see some of the sights Lewis and Clark saw. You can see grizzly bears and buffalo. You can see jackrabbits and magpies. And if you are lucky, you might even see a prairie dog. And then this is an author's note. It says, "This is a true story, and Lewis and Clark were real explorers." Mr. Peely was also an artist. He painted these pictures of Lewis and Clark and put them in his museum. Today, the museum is called Independence Hall. That's the end of our book. So I have an activity I'm going to want y'all to do. So what you are going to do is, you ready? You're not ready. You're going to make a prairie dog puppet. Yeah, you're just gonna make a prairie dog puppet. I'll show a picture of what it's gonna look like. But yeah, if that doesn't work out the way it should, you can also just draw a picture of the prairie dog and the prairie it lives in, So yeah, I hope y'all enjoyed today's lesson on Lewis and Clark. Bye!